So it's not really important whether you've done something right or wrong. It's important on the relative level as to whether you get into trouble or something happens to you on the human level, but on the absolute level, like in non-duality terms, it's really irrelevant. The problem is when you do something wrong, or when you feel like you've done something wrong, or you feel like you've made a mistake, then there's this identification with it and this seeking to avoid that feeling because the feeling is uncomfortable. So doing something wrong is more than likely in your heart chakra and in your throat, and then it arises like you do something or you feel guilty about something, or you fill out forms wrong, or you forget to do something, or you treat your kids or your partner in a certain way, or you make a choice to move somewhere and then you realize it's a disaster. Whatever the case is, on the ultimate level, it doesn't matter, but what creates the suffering is the identification with that feeling and then the attempt to try to avoid that feeling. So it's like all that mentality that starts arising around the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment, the self-judgment, the pity story, all of these arise, and then it's taken to be true and it's taken to be a reality. And then you seek to avoid the feelings that it produces, and it wakes you up at night and it stresses everything. And that's never your problem. Your problem always is that you've lost home. So a person is always convinced that the problem with my life is me and something that I've done in it, or something that someone else has done to me, decisions I've made, places I've been. Like, my problem is me, and that is the reason why I'm unhappy. Events, circumstance, life is the reason I'm unhappy. But actually the reason that you suffer is because there's an identification with that person, and that consciousness is sucked in and made it feel like that person is really real, and that's who you are, and that you're somebody inside this body. And this isn't who you are. Who you are is nobody. Not a thing. That's who you truly are. It shines through a character, so it shines through someone that's maybe done things wrong, got to go to jail, or cleaned something up that it's made a mistake about. But that's not actually you. So who are you? Who are you? Who looks out of your eyes? Who feels? What happens in humans is that there's thoughts that arise, there's feelings that arise, there's sensations that arise, and then there's something that claims all of that, like sticky tape, and says, that is me. I'm somebody that came into this room. I'm somebody that will leave this room. I'm somebody that's been on holiday to New Zealand. I'm a social worker. I have 8 kids, 2 dogs, 3 cats, 4 husbands. And I'm pretty tired and exhausted from all that. So this is the story that you tell yourself. I'm sure that story is very familiar to a lot of women. And then there's this identification with that story. And so what happens is you never get a break from yourself. Who you are, your nature is self-replenishing. Is that the right word? It's not even self-replenishing, because consciousness doesn't actually get affected by anything. It's free. It's absolutely free. So in each moment, so if you think that you're guilty and that you've done something wrong, you have to examine what's happening in each moment. So in each moment, there's an impulse arising. So there's feelings arising, there's speaking arising, there's looking that arising. And where is that coming from? If you're guilty for your actions and your behaviors and what you've done, then where is this you that it all arises from? So what happens in your brain is there is this commentator. And they say that the commentator that says, should I take an apple or should I take an orange? It's actually that comes after the decision's been made. So the decision by the body's been made to take an orange, and then the story comes, I'm going to take an orange over the apple. And then it makes it feel like this is who you are, that you are that voice, where actually who you are is consciousness, and everything's arising from this consciousness, and it's kind of automatic. It's not coming from a center. There isn't a person that's acting freely and has free will. There is no free will. There is simply life happening from this infinite source of nothing. Nothing is the nature. I have to put this window small again, otherwise I keep looking at myself. Sorry. Vanity prevails. Lisa is vain. It's very, very difficult to not look at yourself when you're filming and then you've got a screen with a big picture of you. You end up like that. So what was I saying? So who is this you? Free will is a story that we've invented. Choice is something that we've invented. There's never been choice. So if you take Khaleesi, my beautiful dog, who's not here with me, she's in the garden, so I can't point to her. She's having her dinner. So she's, so say if I presented to her a chicken kebab and a vegetable kebab. Chicken kebab, a vegetable kebab. If you don't know what a kebab is, it's like, I don't know, I think there's lots of different types of kebabs, but what I was imagining is where you have like this meat on a skewer. Like, so you got vegetables with no meat and the meat one. And I put it in front of Khaleesi and I'm like, Khaleesi, you have the choice between meat or vegetables. It's totally your choice. You have free will. Pick away. So she will investigate it. So it appears like she has free will. Should I? And then, more than likely, she's going to pick the meat one. I would bet a lot of money that she would pick the meat one. I think it's highly unlikely she'll pick the vegetable one. So she'll pick the vegetable one and off she'll trot. And we label that as her having free will and that being her choice. So that's how we speak about it in our language, that she chose a kebab made of meat rather than a kebab made of vegetables. And then that's a label we stick on her, like, that's what she's done. But if we look at dogs, like dogs don't have language. So I can say a few words to Khaleesi and she understands, like sit, waiting, come, walking, lay, good girl, Khaleesi. Like she understands some of my commands, but I don't think dogs have a language. I think they've got some sort of recognition. So when they bark, they can tell what the other is kind of intending by that bark, whether it's aggressive or whether it's playful or whether it's warning about predators or fearful. So they can kind of tell those sorts of things, but they don't tell it through thought. They're not like, oh, Jack down the hill is having a bit of a bark now. I can see that he's fearful and that somebody is trying to get into his property. Like, I don't think Khaleesi can think like that. I think that there can be a sense of it, so she can be agitated and she can be looking around, but she can't think about it. I don't think dogs have a language in which they talk, where they're like, hello, Jack, how are you today? And Jack's all like, oh, Khaleesi, hello, nice to see you, I'm doing very well. And then Khaleesi's like, how's your owners doing? Oh, they're doing very well, they say hello. I don't think they have this type of dialogue when they see each other. There's obviously dialogue happening with the way they hold their bodies, the way they move their tail, the way they smell, but I don't think they have complex thinking that can speak to each other like that. Apparently, somebody x-rayed a dog's brain and a dog's brain looks much like a walnut. So that's very small. The size, they have a brain the size of a walnut. A little bit shocking. I think I overestimated Khaleesi's intelligence prior to that. But I don't think they're having dialogues together. But yet, there still can be the appearance of choice, but she doesn't have the ability to say, I chose or I'm doing this. To her, she doesn't regret her decisions. She doesn't reflect on her decisions because she doesn't even know she's making decisions. It's simply life happening in the most innocent form. She goes up and then she takes it, what she wants. But we label it like she takes it and that's what she wants. But that's simply the way we're labeling it. That's not truth or fact. In her experience, there is only one choice and only one happening, and it couldn't be any other way. She can't think about it being a different way. She can't think about choice. She can't think, I have a choice between vegetables and meat. To her, it's simply happening. It's just a happening. So if we come back to humans, we have the ability to label an action as choice. She chose between the apples and the oranges. And we label that as choice, and we label that as free will. And that gives us, and that has over the years created in humans a sense of guilt or a sense of regret, a sense of doing a mistake, which I'm sure has been helpful for our survival, for us to be able to contemplate our choices and think about a better choice. But it's given us the sense that we actually have free will and that we're working against life rather than as life, for life. So we're against it, and we could have made a wrong choice. And it brings up a lot of pressure, and I think this brings up a lot of worry, anxiety, and a lot of mental activity. So there was something else I wanted to say about that. But just because we label it as free will doesn't mean that's what's happening. That's just what we label it. Like, so the fact that we say she chose one over the other doesn't mean we actually have the choice to choose the other. We can only make one choice, and we can only do one action. And where do these thoughts come from? So if it's you, where do you put in that choice? Like, how do you create that choice? So with Khaleesi, it's fairly obvious she's going to choose the meat, because she eats, like, they're meant to eat like 80% meat or bones or animal parts and only 20% vegetables. And so it's pretty obvious she's more than likely going to pick the meat than the vegetable. So with us, it's more than likely, you know, if we go up and we're picking food, we're going to pick food which fits in with our human capability. Like, we don't really want to go and eat leaves off the tree. Whereas like a panda bear or a koala is quite happy, or a sloth is like, leaves are fantastic. Whereas we've given the option of leaves, a lettuce, or a soya burger. We're like, we'll take the soya burger, please, or chocolate. And we believe that's our free will. But how did you get the programming? How did you have that body that has those particular choices and those particular wants and ideas? Who did that? Who created that? So it's your choice, but did you choose to be a meat eater? Or we're not actually meat eaters, apparently we're opportunists. So we're not, there's lots of arguments about it. Opportunists, I think that's quite funny. We're an opportunist. No, I can't say it. If that is the case, like, how did we choose it to be an opportunist? How did you choose that? It'd be much easier life if we could just eat the leaves off our trees. It would be easier rather than having to do all this preparation over food that we do, all this hunting for food that we do. So we label that as free will. So then we think that if we make the decision that we made a mistake, that we didn't put enough information into our brains, that we didn't find out enough things, and we actually made a mistake. Whereas there can't actually be mistakes. There couldn't be any other choice than what there is. So let's imagine Siri in our telephones. So if you've got an Apple phone, then you'll know who Siri is. So Siri is someone that I can ask, can you pull me up the best information about a dog walker nearby? Or can you pull me up the best information about Napoleon? And it seems, it might seem in the computer, even though there's nobody conscious in that computer, that they have a choice between different websites. But Siri is actually programmed to pick up the best sites according to my needs. So it evolves with my needs, it learns by my needs, and then it's programmed to pick up the best sites. It's not that Siri chooses, it looks like it's choosing, not this one, but this one, not that one, but this one. But Siri doesn't actually choose, it's simply a programming that's selecting particular information over other information. We can make more wiser choices, so we can learn, the body can learn how to be more informed and make more wise choices about partners, about relationships, about living, about housing. But that's not somebody choosing. So can Siri. Siri can be more updated with information and give wiser, more condensed, more appropriate answers. This person that you take yourself to be, that you think is the chooser, isn't a chooser. It's a happening. And the reason that I point it out is because there's a lot of identification with choice, and there's a lot of identification with your choice, and a lot of seeking and mental activity around it, and none of it's true. And that's why I point it out, like this attempt to relax that grip on choice. Like your mistake, you've made a mistake. The reason that you feel you've made a mistake is because you've lost who you are, and who you are is this infinite nature, this consciousness, this emptiness looking out. Your freedom is that you are right here, right now. It's not about future, it's not about getting, it's not about where you've done or what you've been through or where you're going. That's part of the story of the character, but that's not where your happiness lays. You'll be sorely disappointed if you keep believing that happiness is in what you choose, in what you pick, in what you believe, in what you get to. This has nothing to do with that. This is a freedom beyond that. But there's such an attachment to that story of you. That's not who you are.